Where is my guilt? I can regret. I can regret that I made the party film Triumph of the Will in 1934, but I cannot regret that I lived in that time. I did not join the party. So where then is my guilt? You tell me. I have thrown no atomic bombs. I have never betrayed anyone. What am I guilty of? Leni Riefenstahl. Triumph of the Will, a documentary film depicting the 1934 Nuremberg rally led by Adolf Hitler, is widely considered the most effective propaganda film of all time. This movie, however, unlike all other propaganda films of the time, was written, directed, filmed, and produced by one woman, Leni Riefenstahl. She faced the conflict of being a female artist in 1930s Germany, a time when most women were either poor factory workers or housewives. In order for Riefenstahl to be able to pursue her craft of filmmaking, she compromised with Adolf Hitler, who provided her unlimited supplies, budget, and artistic licensing in exchange for propaganda films. As a female filmmaker conflicted with few other options, Riefenstahl compromised her reputation and values to be able to create revolutionary films, forever changing the way documentaries are made, and by creating a new type of imagery which has come to be recognized as the aesthetics of fascism. Leni Riefenstahl was born in 1902 in Berlin, Germany. As a child, she was exposed to many forms of art, including dance, where she was met with great success until a knee injury left her incapable of performing. After that, she gained popularity as an actress, becoming the star of many of Arnold Fink's silent films. She soon became an icon of Berg film, a genre of German films set in the Alps. In 1932, she directed and starred in her first film, The Blue Light. The movie encouraged social commentary in a dark, post-World War I Germany. Hitler's rise to power was accomplished in a politically and economically decimated post-war Germany. The Versailles Treaty forced Germany to pay for the war as well as the disarmament of the country's military. The nation fell into a state of chaos, and its vulnerability led a young World War I veteran, Adolf Hitler, into a position of power. After a failed attempt at becoming president in 1932, Hitler became chancellor in January of 1933. 2 months later, the Enabling Act was adopted, which gave Hitler and his cabinet legislative power which could not be interfered with by the Reichstag. Germany fell into the hands of the Nazi Party. After Hitler's rise to power in 1933, there was an exodus of artists, scientists, and filmmakers in Germany, as artists realized they would either be censored by the Nazi Party or forced into work with them. Hitler recognized Riefenstahl's power of political persuasion in her film The Blue Light, and imagined the same filmmaking techniques could be used to mobilize the idea of German strength and power. Riefenstahl, although remaining in her own words apolitical, had previously heard Hitler speak at a Nazi Party rally, where she recalled being fascinated by the way he captivated the large group of people, noting that he was an incredibly persuasive and talented speaker. Riefenstahl made a short film about the 1933 Nazi Party rallies in Nuremberg titled Victory of Faith. The film was created with only several days of preparation, however was an aesthetically advanced film. Hitler insisted that Riefenstahl make another film documenting the 1934 Nuremberg rally, offering her an unlimited budget and unlimited artistic licensing. She accepted under these conditions and eventually created The Triumph of Will, a film which would, unknown to Riefenstahl, alter the history of both Europe and film. The Triumph of Will, released in 1935, is considered to be one of the most skilled propaganda films, utilizing innovative techniques, introducing new documentary filmmaking tactics, using a total of 30 film cameras and a crew of 120 technicians. In the film, Riefenstahl glorifies the power of Hitler and the Nazis, using imagery and motifs to connote godliness, such as in the beginning scene when Hitler descends from the heavens in a plane. Religion in The Triumph of Will was cleverly inserted to allow Hitler to be seen as a godlike figure and to solidify German faith in the Nazi Party. The film sparked a passion in Germany for the Nazi Party and created what is now known as the aesthetics of fascism, a term used to describe the imagery created by Riefenstahl: the marching of men, the sky, the waving of banners, the uniforms, the swastikas, the overwhelming cheers, and the smiling children at the front of the crowds. She had successfully created a nation fueled not by fascist politicians, but by fascist imagery and art that captivated the Germans and allowed Hitler to become a figure of complete power. Riefenstahl's second feature-length documentary was titled Olympia, which captured the images of the 1936 Summer Olympic Games in Berlin. During Olympia, Riefenstahl created numerous cinematographic techniques. It was also during the filming of Olympia that Riefenstahl had her first conflict with Hitler, as he intended to only showcase the athletic greatness of Aryan participants. She was instructed to make the film without footage of any non-white athletes. However, she defied his wishes and burst out onto the field to film African-American track star Jesse Owens. Olympia showed the world two things: Riefenstahl's passion for innovative film technique and her strong political indifference. Riefenstahl's work was recognized internationally at the Venice Film Festival in 1938, where her film Olympia and fellow propagandist Goffredo Alessandrini's film Luciano Serra Pilot jointly won top awards, the Mussolini Cup. Both Hitler and fellow fascist leader Mussolini pressured the jury to change the award winners just hours before announcing the results. In 1945, after the war, Riefenstahl tried to use her apolitical beliefs to separate herself from the Nazi Party by attempting to release the film Tiefland to distract people from her propaganda pieces. The creation of Tiefland, however, had a large cast of Roma and Sinti inmates who were apparently sent to their death at Auschwitz after the completion of the film. According to Horst Kettner, Riefenstahl's longtime camera operator, she had no idea that her gypsies would be murdered. She was very sorry when she found out that some of them were, because she had a great relationship with them, and no one treated the gypsies better than Leni. This contrasts the account of some of the Roma and Sinti actors who claim that Riefenstahl was completely aware of the crimes being committed against gypsies. She was arrested in 1945 by French officers, and the film was not released until 1954. Post-war, Riefenstahl was declared a Nazi sympathizer through denazification processes and was never able to regain her status as a prominent German filmmaker, unlike many of her male propagandist counterparts who returned to Germany for prosperous careers as filmmakers in the 1950s. Riefenstahl took up photography and in the 1960s and 70s lived and documented the lives of the Nuba people in Sudan. Even her work with the Nuba was still connoted with the Nazi Party, and her art remained controversial till her death on September 8, 2003. Riefenstahl's triumph of will greatly encouraged partisan support of the Nazi Party in Germany and created the aesthetic that would be used in many Nazi and fascist propaganda films to follow. In the United States, director Frank Capra was commissioned by the U.S. government to make the Why We Fight series of propaganda films during World War II to combat German propagandists. He screened a copy of Triumph of Will to gauge the effectiveness. What he realized is that she had the ability to recruit and direct mass emotions for nearly any purpose. Her forceful aesthetics and propaganda won her accolades and awards. In 1974, Riefenstahl was honored at the first Telluride Film Festival in Colorado. The screening of her film Olympia, as well as the honoring of her as an artist, greatly angered people, generating protests against the festival. Festival chairman Al Miller responded to the conflict, saying, "This woman, working in a male-dominated craft, broke through barriers and used the medium as it had never been used before." Riefenstahl is now recognized as the most important propagandist of all time. In 1994, Ray Mueller released a documentary titled The Wonderful, Horrible Life of Leni Riefenstahl, exploring her complex nature as an artist, her association with the Nazis, and her extremely innovative film techniques. In the art world, there exists a debate over whether art can be incomprehensibly immoral and great at the same time. Riefenstahl stands at the center of this debate, as her films are some of the most influential of all time, but were used in the aid of a horrifying fascist regime. Riefenstahl remained adamant through her whole life that she was passionate about creation, and her work for Hitler was simply a compromise she had to make. In a period of conflict and strife for women in film, Riefenstahl compromised her own career and reputation to create the film Triumph of Will, one of cinema's most controversial masterpieces.